This page is the cover of 64 magazine, issue 54. It features a look at Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet, highlighting the return of the furry hero. There's also a mention of Mario Kart Advance, one of many GBA titles, and Eternal Darkness. The cover showcases screenshots from Excitebike 64, Bomberman Tournament, Mario Party 3, and Castlevania. It covers games across GameCube, GB Advance, Nintendo 64, and Game Boy Color, and promotes giveaways for Game Boy Advances and Game Boy Color games. Note the prominent disclaimer that the magazine is not endorsed by Nintendo. This page introduces the team behind 64 magazine and what they've been up to since the last issue, including their excitement for GameCube after E3. It mentions they've all been taking on various part-time jobs while the magazine wasn't out, with each staff member pictured alongside their unconventional roles, and a Game of the Month choice. Roy chose Bomberman Tournament, Paul picked Excitebike 64, Alex went with Mario Party 3, and Nick selected Konami Crazy Racers. Importantly for N64 fans, they discussed the demand for help with Rare's masterpiece, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and confirm a guide is finally included in this issue. The page also features a large advertisement for Cheats Unlimited, offering over 10,000 cheats and tips for a vast library of games across multiple platforms, including PlayStation, PS2, Dreamcast, PC, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and of course, plenty of Nintendo 64 titles listed by name. This service is accessible via a premium rate phone number or their website, promising expert-compiled guides and daily updates. A large image of Mario promotes turning to another page for special offers. Various console images like Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, GameCube, and N64 are displayed around the page. This page gives us a cracking overview of what's inside this issue, showing off Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet front and center. That was originally planned for the N64 before moving over to the GameCube, you see. You've also got a look at Excitebike 64, a proper N64 motocross gem. So, it points towards a big E3 feature, which is essential viewing to see what Nintendo had coming down the pipe, including GameCube reveals, and presumably updates on 64 titles still on the horizon. Crucially, there's a guide for Conker's Bad Fur Day, a Lateran 64 masterpiece that loads of people needed help with, so that's sorted. The quick search section lists the reviews, primarily focusing on Game Boy Advance titles, but there's a review for the excellent Mario Party 3 on N64, plus an Excitebike 64 update in the UK section. You'll also find the usual suspects like Gamebusters for cheats and solutions. The next page dives straight into the upcoming GameCube console, giving us the lowdown on the expected sub-£200 price point for the UK market, although the PAL release was still only tentatively scheduled for early 2002 around the Easter break. Major publishers like Electronic Arts were showing huge support, with 10 titles already in development, including big hitters from the Madden, FIFA, SSX, and NBA Street franchises. Acclaim also teased a new game nicknamed Jinxed, which sounds interesting, described as having a character reminiscent of Juno from the cracking N64 title, Jet Force Gemini. Nintendo was clearly very optimistic about the new machine, predicting massive worldwide sales targets. There's also a note on the successful launch of the Game Boy Advance, shifting loads of units in the US and UK, right out of the gate. On the N64 front, it's mentioned that the highly anticipated sequel to Perfect Dark wasn't shown at E3 as some expected, but word was still that Rare were plugging away at it for the following year. Even Sonic's creator Yuji Naka was apparently a big fan of the GameCube hardware. This page is packed with excitement for the future. It talks about how Nintendo is shifting its major announcements from E3 to their own Space World show in Japan, coming up in August. This is where we were told to expect big things like playable demos of the new Zelda and Metroid titles, plus the debut of Miyamoto's latest Mario game. There's a real buzz about the GameCube, described as being tiny, well-priced, and having a dreamlike interface for developers. Everyone seems keen to get their hands on one, especially for titles like the psychological thriller Eternal Darkness, which gets a strong recommendation here, and is said to refute any negative reports. Pikmin also sounds fascinating, with the concept of controlling 100 little creatures. Third parties are clearly getting on board too, with Activision, THQ, Midway, and Ubisoft all lining up games for the new console. We hear that Interplay is bringing titles, and even Sega's legendary M2 team under Yu Suzuki is working on GameCube projects like Virtua Fighter and Sega Rally. Die Hard Next Generation is mentioned as a GameCube exclusive. Interestingly, the article notes that the game Malice, which was initially talked about as a GameCube exclusive and a potential Xbox rival to Mario, was no longer exclusive and seemed set to go multi-platform instead. The screenshots shown give us a glimpse of the new Metroid title and characters from Resident Evil 0 and Eternal Darkness. This page delves into the reader's thoughts in the letters section, reflecting on the state of N64 gaming as the excitement for the GameCube and GBA, highlighted last page, builds. Gamers share their experiences with their N64 collections, discussing the cost of games like Conker's Bad Fur Day and the usefulness of player guides for titles such as GoldenEye and Banjo-Tooie. There's talk about the pace of new N64 releases compared to other consoles, and whether classics like Zelda or Ocarina of Time will be forgotten. The page features screenshots of N64 favorites, including Mario Kart 64, Vigilante 8, Quake 2 iArena, and Mario Tennis. You can also see prominent character art featuring Conker and another figure with a distinct JRPG style. This page features more letters from readers, continuing the debate about the Nintendo 64's place, with the Game Boy Advance and GameCube on the horizon, mentioning games like Zelda and Pokémon. There's also a question about becoming a game designer. The page includes character art of Squirtle, Charizard, Mario, Toad, and Earthworm Jim. A large section is dedicated to an advert for the THQG Club, promoting Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance titles including eSports, the FA Premier League Stars 2001, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, Emergency Patrol, and GT Advanced Championship Racing, offering free goodies and info for members. This page is a big preview for Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet, which is looking rather exciting indeed. It seems Fox McCloud and the gang are back, but this time they've swapped their R-Wing for foot exploration on the titular Dinosaur Planet. The write-up compares the gameplay style quite heavily to Zelda, mentioning exploration, item usage, and combat with a staff that Fox uses. Peppy and Slippy are confirmed to return, while Falco is apparently off on his own mission. The article highlights the impressive graphics shown in the screenshots, noting the full render quality. There are shots of the characters in their ships, Fox facing off against some rather nasty-looking dinosaurs, and lush environments. There's also a box detailing the returning characters and their roles, like Slippy being the weapons tech and Peppy handling mission support, though he's apparently staying safely in the ship, the coward. It also mentions meeting a young dinosaur called Tricky. It's noted that Rare hasn't revealed everything, but what's shown looks top-notch, and apparently plays just as well. It's interesting to see them take the series in such a different direction, moving away from the on-rails shooter format. This one was originally planned for the N64, but it ended up shifting over to the GameCube in the end, released as just Star Fox Adventures. Still, it's great to see Rare pushing the hardware this much. This page dives into the world of Eternal Darkness, a game that caused quite a stir. It was originally planned for the N64 and was looking set to be one of its last big hopes, but as the article points out, it ended up making the jump to the GameCube instead. The magazine talks about the feeling you get when you see something special, comparing it to the first time seeing Mario 64 or Pilotwings 64. While a first glance at the screenshots might make you think of Resident Evil, the article quickly explains it's much more, highlighting the game's deep story spanning time and featuring 12 different characters. It praises the technical aspects of the GameCube version, noting the constant 60 frames per second, 24-bit color, and detailed lighting and texture effects, calling it a technical marvel. The sound design also gets a mention for adding to the atmosphere. The preview confirms the game's publisher is Nintendo and the developer is Silicon Knights, and notes it was set for a 2002 UK release. The article touches on the game's shift in format, suggesting it was a move that made sense given the market at the time and Nintendo likely seeing its potential as a GameCube launch title. It sounds like Silicon Knights really pushed the new hardware with this one. This article explores Eternal Darkness, focusing on its innovative insanity meter. The game uses the meter to depict the effects of mental degradation, with visual and auditory cues like distorted environments and unsettling hallucinations. The article mentions the drastic visual changes and the sanity effects enabled by the GameCube's power, like body parts falling off. It compares the GameCube version to a planned N64 iteration, highlighting the significant graphical improvements in character models, textures, and overall atmosphere. An interview with Silicon Knights president Dennis Dyack emphasizes the GameCube's ability to bring their vision to life, achieving a smooth 60 FPS and enabling features like complex character models, enhanced cinematics, and a large number of enemies on screen. Dyack discusses the inspiration from films and the use of dynamic cameras. The article also includes an advertisement for N64 game tips. This page features two competitions, One gives away Game Boy Color copies of Rainbow Islands and Shrek from TDK Mediactive. The other, from GameStation, offers the chance to win Game Boy Advance systems. This page is a feature looking back at E3 and Nintendo's big push for the GameCube. It discusses the reveal and launch details for the console, including the price and date, contrasting it with the Xbox launch. There's talk of third-party support, and how Nintendo seemed to dominate the show floor compared to Sony's PlayStation 2 stand, which was apparently quite empty at times. It also highlights the technical specifications of the GameCube's hardware, and mentions games shown off at the event like Eternal Darkness, Pikmin, and Rogue Leader. There are images of the E3 Expo, the GameCube console, and people at the show. This page continues the E3 feature, diving deeper into the experience of being at Nintendo's huge stand, describing it as a place of magic and wonder that made you forget about the rest of the show. The article highlights the sheer scale and professionalism of the setup. They talk about the playable demos, listing titles like Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet, Cameo, a cracking-looking title that ended up elsewhere mind you, Wave Race, Blue Storm, Eternal Darkness, Star Wars, Rogue Leader, and Kobe Bryant Basketball. There's also a mention of the Spin That Wheel attraction, where people could win prizes like GameCube or Game Boy Advance bits, which naturally caused massive queues. A particularly interesting find highlighted is in the This Is Hardcore section, detailing a special Matsushita/Panasonic GameCube that could play DVDs, a rare piece of kit spotted in a display case. The page is filled with images showing the bustling stand, promotional holograms of characters like Mario, various shots of the GameCube console and controller, and people getting handsome with the games, really capturing the excitement of the event. Nintendo's E3 showing aimed to prove they offered more than just Mario, Zelda, and Pokémon. Luigi's Mansion details Luigi's ghost hunting debut, with a Poltergust 3000, focusing on environmental interaction. Super Smash Bros. Melee showcased improved character models and new modes, hinting at a wider character roster. Wave Race, Blue Storm impressed with realistic water effects, including refraction and weather changes, plus a turbo boost. Pikmin, a surprise hit, featured Miyamoto's plant-based creatures for gathering ship parts. The straight-to-video segment provided previews of upcoming titles like Zelda, Metroid, Raven Blade, Mario Kart, Donkey Kong Racing, and a Capcom-developed Mickey Mouse game, offering a tantalizing glimpse into Nintendo's future. This article previews GameCube titles initially showcased around the N64 era. Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet, featuring Fox McCloud with a staff and support from Slippy, Peppy, and Rob, underwent subtle changes during its transition. Cameo, starring the fairy princess Cameo, focuses on her ability to morph into creatures with unique skills, resembling exoskeletons. Star Wars Rogue Leader, Squadron 2, a technical showcase, boasts a smooth 60 FPS and detailed visuals based on the special edition films, including iconic missions, and various Star Wars crafts like the X-Wing. It was a GameCube launch title. This page dives into more of the E3 goodness, starting with a look at NBA Courtside 2002. The preview highlights the attention to detail in the graphics, particularly the face mapping, and praises the AI and animation sequences that make dribbling and passing feel seamless. It's presented as a strong contender for a realistic basketball simulation. Next up is The Best of the Rest, covering various other titles shown. Sega is making a big push for the GameCube, with previews of Virtua Striker 3, the fun-looking monkey ball with its character select screen, and Phantasy Star Online version 2, noting the online aspect is coming to the console. There's also a mention of Jurassic Park with a screenshot showing its cartoony style, and Electronic Arts showing Madden 2002, which is said to look great but plays like a standard Madden game. Finally, there's a substantial preview of Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. This philosophical horror title is highly anticipated, praised for running at a smooth 60 frames per second, with up to 20 enemies on screen. The cutscenes are described as highly detailed, and it's noted that the loading times are incredibly fast, even faster than the N64 version, so fast they had to be slowed down. It was expected in December in the AST, and was clearly high on everyone's list. This page features an article covering the Game Boy Advance's showing at E3, complete with various screenshots of GBA titles. The rest of the page is given over to ringtone and graphic adverts. This page opens the reviews section, headlined by a feature on Excitebike 64 showing off the frantic motocross action. It lists the games being reviewed in this issue, including Mario Party 3 for the N64, alongside numerous Game Boy Advance titles, such as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Castlevania, Rayman Advance, and Konami Crazy Racers. The page also explains the magazine's rating system, breaking down what the scores mean for graphics, audio, and gameplay, and provides a guide to the functions of the N64 controller buttons. This page features 2 reviews for Game Boy Advance titles, a common occurrence in 64 magazine as it covered all things Nintendo. First up is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 for the GBA. It's lauded for its stunning graphics, animations, tons of moves, and simply great gameplay and controls. The screenshots show the skater pulling off impressive tricks in various environments, like a half-pipe and a street level. The review highlights it captures the feel of the console version surprisingly well despite being on a handheld. It scores a whopping 95%. Alongside that is Ready to Rumble, Round 2, also on the GBA. This one's an arcade boxing game, described as bringing the fisticuffs action to the handheld. The screenshots show boxers trading blows in the ring. The review notes it looks fantastic and sounds great, though the moves can be a bit complex. It scores a respectable 75%. The page includes mini-reviews and overall scores for both games. The Game Boy Advance receives high praise for 2 diverse titles. Castlevania, Circle of the Moon delivers classic vampire hunting action with a sprawling castle, challenging gameplay, and monstrous bosses. The review highlights its detailed environments and challenging encounters, awarding it a 94% score. Choo Choo Rocket, Warrington Norsa, a puzzle game ported from the Dreamcast, offers a different experience. Players guide mice into rockets while avoiding cats in grid-based levels. The review emphasizes its addictive multiplayer battle mode and superb gameplay, despite basic graphics. It scores an 88% and is lauded for its fun, especially in multiplayer. Warrington New. This page takes a deep dive into Excitebike 64, giving it a UK update and branding it a sizzler. It really nails the feel of motocross, capturing the dirt, jumps, and the need for smart turbo use. The controls are straightforward, but mastering the tricks and handling the rough terrain takes real skill, which is where the depth comes in. Racing against the computer is tough, particularly on the higher difficulty levels, making every victory feel earned. The review highlights the intense starts to races and the constantly challenging corners and obstacles. A fantastic addition is the track editor, which gives the game incredible replay value once you've mastered the 18 main tracks. The game looks sharp and handles brilliantly, offering plenty of modes and supporting solid 4-player races, making it a game you can keep coming back to. Screenshots show the game in action across different environments. This page goes further into Excitebike 64, starting with Back to School, highlighting the in-game tutorial as the best way to learn the ropes, from basics right up to pulling off flashy stunts, shown in several screenshots. There's a cool nod to the past with In My Day, mentioning the hidden original NES Excitebike game as a great unlockable extra. The Rev It Up and off-road sections delve into the game's realistic physics and track design, detailing the challenging stadium circuits with their tight turns and bumps, and the more open off-road tracks with natural obstacles and big jumps, plus unlockable extras like the stunt track and desert race. They really stress the need for technical riding to master the varied terrain. The Out of Sight section acknowledges the game isn't perfect, mentioning the frustration of the season mode's difficulty spikes and the sometimes erratic AI, but ultimately says mastering the controls overcomes these issues, making the challenge rewarding. The page features various screenshots, showing the game's action on different tracks and during tutorials. It wraps up with strong visual ratings across graphics, audio, gameplay, and challenge, culminating in an excellent overall score of 92%. The soundbite declares it the best motocross game played, and a second opinion praises it as an ace console racer, especially in multiplayer. The next page features a review of Konami Crazy Racers, which is a kart racer with some classic Konami characters like Dracula and Goemon, but you see this one came out on the Game Boy Advance, so nothing for us Nin64 players here. There's also a promotion for a mobile text chat service. This page features reviews for a couple of games on the Game Boy Advance. There's Kuru Kuru Kururin, which is described as an arcade puzzler type game with a very high overall score of 92%. Alongside it is Pinobi, Quest of the Heart, a platform game starring a bee, scoring 81%. These are clearly titles for Nintendo's new handheld, not the N64. This page features a review of Rayman Advance for the Game Boy Advance. It looks back at Rayman's history, noting how the original game was praised for its PlayStation-style graphics, and contrasts that with the Graeber's 32-bit visuals, calling them definitely a sight for sore eyes. The review describes the game's story involving Mr. Dark and the stolen Electoons, highlighting the silly but unavoidable chore of the backstory leading into 62 levels of platforming action with Rayman's signature abilities. It mentions the game's difficulty, stating it's unbelievably hard throughout and can be frustrating. The graphics are praised as absolutely fantastic, colorful visuals, and psychedelic adventures are a real eye-candy feast, with the second opinion adding it's a riot of animation, color and humor. Audio is also rated highly. Gameplay and challenge ratings are included, alongside an overall score of 94%. Screenshots show vibrant, detailed platforming sections. There's also a look at the controls, and a small section listing alternatives like Mario Advance and Pinobi. The soundbite summarizes it as, the original Rayman adventure, but in miniature. The best graphics on the GBA. This page features a review of Mario Party 3, for the Nintendo 64. It immediately sets the scene, highlighting that it's the third entry in the popular series and asks how to review a game that's fundamentally similar to its predecessors, while still having improvements. The review notes that despite minor tweaks, the core gameplay of moving around themed boards, playing mini-games, and collecting stars remains largely the same as Mario Party 1 and 2. Key improvements mentioned include new content, specifically highlighting that there are 70 brand new minigames. It suggests the visuals have seen some improvement and describes the characters and environments as traditional and cutesy. The game's strength is firmly placed on these imaginative minigames. The review also mentions the importance of playing with friends, suggesting the game isn't as good solo. A dedicated section titled, "These are a few of our favorite things," showcases 4 example minigames: Quiz, Fire, Cube and Jump, giving a brief description of each. Overall, it positions Mario Party 3 as the leader of the pack for this style of game, building upon the established formula with a massive number of new minigames. Screenshots show various characters on game boards, and glimpses of different minigame types, including the racing minigame Replay. This page continues the review of Mario Party 3, digging into the gameplay more deeply. It discusses the minigames, highlighting the variety and how they test different skills. There's a section on playing alone, called Private Party, noting that while you can practice the minigames, watching the computer players can get a bit dull compared to the multiplayer experience. The review stresses that getting friends involved is the key to enjoying the game, especially with the dual map mode mentioned, which sounds interesting. There's a strong quote stating, "Mario Party 3 is clearly the best incarnation of the series so far." The second opinion from Roy Kimber also echoes this positive sentiment, praising the improvements over the previous games, especially the interactive sections and the one-player mode. The review concludes in a section called Mario's Balls, reaffirming that despite some familiar issues, the improvements make it a great purchase, particularly for multiplayer. Screenshots show more gameplay moments on the board and within minigames, full of vibrant colors. There's a diagram of the Nintendo 64 controller mapping out the basic controls, and a list of alternative games like Mario Party 2 and Pokémon Puzzle League are mentioned. Finally, the overall score of 86% is shown, with a soundbite declaring it Mario's most satisfying party yet. The Game Boy Advance reviews cover Fire Pro Wrestling and Advanced GTA. Fire Pro Wrestling, a 2D isometric wrestling game, emphasizes gameplay depth over graphics, offering a large roster, robust creation mode, and 4-player link-up. The review praises the game's classic style and inspired extras, awarding it an 85%. Alex Jones also finds it decent. Advanced GTA, a racing game, is compared to GT All Japan Racing, offering a more engaging driving feel. Despite some graphical jerkiness and frustrating collisions, it's considered a good value. The game features an isometric view and various environments. It scores an 81%. While Alex Jones prefers GT All Japan Racing, he acknowledges Advanced Glitter's speed. The soundbite calls it one of the best GBA races. This page reviews Bomberman Tournament on the Game Boy Advance, calling it one of the most addictive games ever. It highlights the fantastic multiplayer action that Bomberman is known for, but also praises the inclusion of a decent RPG story mode, comparing it to a cross between Zelda and Pokémon. The review mentions different battle types, including classic deathmatch and a turn-based style. The game is said to be worth the price of the console alone for its multiplayer, and is described as fantastically playable. Screenshots show the classic multiplayer battle grid, a story mode battle sequence, and an icy scene. It scores an impressive 95%. Alex Jones, in his second opinion, agrees, finding it well worth it despite it being a rehash. The page also features an advert for the Exploder GB cheat cartridge for Game Boy systems. This page features a review of the classic shoot-'em-up 1942, this time on the Game Boy Color. It's a vertically scrolling blaster that puts you in the cockpit for intense WW2 dogfights. The review notes that while war isn't easy, this game manages to capture the action without the brutality. The screenshots show the familiar top-down perspective of aerial combat, featuring enemy planes and ground targets. The reviewer praises the addictive and exciting gameplay, which is the highlight, calling it the important GBC ingredient. However, they mention that the graphics and sound fall a bit short compared to other games on the system, describing them as quite dated, but acknowledge it's an accurate conversion of the arcade classic. The game includes power-ups and big bosses to defeat. It receives a respectable overall score of 83%. A second opinion also agrees it's a great conversion and good fun for long-term play. This page dives straight into a guide for the brilliant Conker's Bad Fur Day, a truly unique and hilarious 1/64 game. It kicks off by setting the scene of Conker's rather rough morning after the night before, explaining the premise of his journey home and how he gets caught up in the game's crazy world, including somehow joining the army. The guide then covers the early sections of the game, starting with Scaredy Birdie, introducing the Scarecrow character Birdie who helps you out, and explaining the crucial context-sensitive buttons, CSBS, which give Conker special abilities like curing his hangover or getting helium. It moves on to the Gargoyle section, detailing how to navigate the cliff face using Conker's helicopter tailspin move, and how to deal with the Gargoyle character by smacking him with a frying pan unlocked by a CSB. The guide also touches upon the game's death system, mentioning extra lives come in the form of Conker's tail segments, and introducing the Grim Reaper character Greg. Screenshots show Conker interacting with Birdie, the Gargoyle, and the Money character, alongside views of the game's environments like the field and waterfall areas. It's a handy overview of how to get started in this cracking adventure. The next page carries on with that cracking guide for Conker's Bad Fur Day, diving into more of Conker's crazy adventures on his way home. We're shown how to help the queen bee retrieve her hive from the wasps, and using the slingshot against those pesky dung beetles. Then it's on to the utterly gross Marvin, a massive mouse who needs feeding cheese to progress. Inside the barn you'll face off against Mad Pitchfork Frankie, using the environment to your advantage before tackling him again as the formidable cyborg Haybot, a proper boss fight where you need to smash water pipes to beat him. Screenshots show the various locations and enemies you'll encounter in these sections, giving a good visual of the challenges ahead. This page continues the excellent guide for Conker's Bad Fur Day, moving on to even more Chowtai sections. We're guided through Frying Tonight, dealing with live wires and rising water, then on to Slam Dunk, which requires some tricky platforming and using Conker's anvil transformation. Next up is the rather unpleasant Poo Cabin, where you're tasked with collecting dung balls and navigating ropes, followed by Pruned, which introduces that famously angry bull, and the quest for prune juice. The guide then covers Sunny Days, showing how to help the sunflower by rounding up groups of bees, before tackling Yee-Haw, explaining the rather unique method of getting dung by guiding the bull to ram cows onto a grate. The screenshots show the various environments, from the underwater areas and climbing sections to the distinctly smelly locations and agricultural antics, giving a good visual of the mayhem. This is from 64 Magazine, issue 54, published in 2001. This page continues the fantastic Conker's Bad Fur Day guide, delving into some rather unpleasant and technical areas. It covers the Sewage Sucks chapter, which sounds exactly as it is, involving navigating through sewage to find items and bypass enemies. Next is Cog's Revenge, detailing the underwater section where you have to round up spiky cogs and use them on a contraption. We also get the lowdown on Blast Doors, explaining how to open a safe with a combination lock puzzle using Conker's chestnuts. Further in is the Mrs. Catfish section, where you encounter those devious catfish who set you a task, and Barry's Mate, which involves finding cogs for a machine, climbing a tower filled with bats, and meeting a memorable, rather rude cog character named Carl, or maybe Quentin. The screenshots show Conker navigating the murky waters, dealing with the spiky enemies and cogs, and interacting with the various characters in these distinct locations. It really highlights the variety of challenges in the game. This page continues the guide for Conker's Bad Fur Day, moving into some particularly memorable sections. We dive into Clang's Lair, which is an underwater area requiring Conker to use a helmet with a light to navigate tunnels and avoid those nasty snapping fish while finding air vents. Following that is Pistastic, a truly unique part where Conker has to extinguish flaming imps by getting drunk on booze and, well, using his bladder. It covers the mechanics of this rather unconventional attack. Then there's Bullfish's Revenge, detailing the encounter with the bullfish after dealing with the catfish, involving a chase and escaping onto a pier. The guide also covers the brass monkey boss fight, explaining how to defeat the old boiler by luring him to chains and hitting his weak spots after a light bulb appears. Finally, it gets into Great Balls of Poo, which is exactly what it sounds like, involving rolling dung balls down a mountain, dealing with dung beetles, and using TNT to clear a path. The screenshots provide glimpses of Conker underwater, the fire imps, the bullfish, the brass monkey boiler, and the dung beetles rolling their prize. It's quite a wild ride through these chapters. This page continues the guide for Conker's Bad Fur Day, picking up with some truly memorable moments. We start in Corn Off the Cob, dealing with that giant smelly voice by feeding it sweet corn and avoiding a massive hand. Then it's the infamous Sweet Melody, tackling the Sloprano, the operatic boss who flings poo, using bog roll to shut him up. The guide moves underwater for the Ubend Blues, navigating those tricky tunnels filled with spinning blades. The Bluff chapter involves needing $1,000 to get past some rather large guards and navigating a rope section. Things get prehistoric in Drunk and Disorderly, set in a temple guarded by dinosaurs and featuring a stone bouncer. You have to roll a boulder to clear the way. Finally, Pruned involves a giant lizard head, finding an egg that hatches into a baby dinosaur, and using that very cute creature as a sacrifice with a slingshot to proceed. It's all part of the unique charm of Conker's Bad Fur Day. This guide will continue in the next issue. This page is all about the score zone, where players get to show off their skills by submitting their top scores and times from across the N64 library. It's packed with records for a huge variety of games. You'll find times listed for racing greats like Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing, along with records from shooters like Perfect Dark and Quake, both Quake 2 and Quake 64. There are also scores for platformers such as Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64, and records for games like Monster Truck Madness, Pokemon Snap, and The World Is Not Enough. There's even a section specifically calling for scores for games they need more entries for, like Pokemon Stadium 2, and our old friend Conker, who's featured in the image here, tying into the guide we saw on the previous page. The page also explains how players can get their own achievements featured, outlining the steps for submitting scores with proof, like photos or videos. This page continues with the Score Zone leaderboards, showcasing top times and scores submitted by players for N64 classics like GoldenEye 007 and Extreme G. You'll also find records for Tetrisphere, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and even Zelda, Majora's Mask, listing out who achieved the best results in various challenges within those games. There's a feature encouraging players to tackle the Score Zone challenge, tying into the Conker coverage, and highlighting the ultimate player prize, a steering wheel compatible with N64 and other consoles. The page also includes large adverts for a cheat hotline service, covering a massive list of games across multiple platforms including the N64, and a GameStation advert selling pre-owned N64 games like Super Mario 64, Perfect Dark, Star Wars Episode iRacer, and Pokemon Stadium, showing their prices. This page is part of the Cheats Central A to Z section, offering a comprehensive list of hints, tips and cheats for numerous N64 games. It's packed with information covering everything from Airborder 64 and Banjo-Tooie to Conker's Bad Fur Day and Army Men Sarge's Heroes. You've got some great artwork on here, featuring the iconic duo Banjo and Kazooie, the rather cheeky Conker, and a tough-looking army man soldier. There are also several screenshots showing snippets of gameplay, like Banjo and Kazooie exploring familiar locations, and a glimpse into Conker's more mature adventures. It's the go-to place for anyone needing a leg up in their favorite N64 titles. This page continues the Cheat Central section, diving into more N64 titles. You've got cheats listed for games like Diddy Kong Racing, Duke Nukem 64, and F-Zero X, giving you access to all sorts of unlockables and advantages. There are also cheats for GoldenEye, Dr. Mario 64, and Harvest Moon 64, covering everything from invincibility to special items and characters. You can see some screenshots from games like Duke Nukem, showcasing the action, and a shot from Harvest Moon, giving a feel for the farming sim life. There's also a cool illustration of a couple of characters from Fighter's Destiny. This page continues the Cheat Central, packed with loads more secrets for a wide array of N64 games. You've got cheats for everything from sports titles like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, and NHL Breakaway 98, to racers like Mickey's Speedway USA, Micro Machines 64, and Multi-Racing Championship. There are also fighting game secrets for Mace, The Dark Age and Mortal Kombat, covering both Trilogy and 4, plus unlocks for the action platformer Mischief Makers, and the adventure game Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. Even RPG fans get some love with cheats for Paper Mario and Party Game Antics, covered with Mario Party secrets. The page is livened up with screenshots from Mario Golf, Paper Mario, and Mortal Kombat, along with cool illustrations of Mario and Mickey Mouse. It's a solid spread, covering various genres. The next page carries on with the Cheat Central goodness, offering up secrets for a load more N64 classics. You've got Perfect Dark here with its GoldenEye weapon unlocks, alongside Rampage 2 with its giant monster action, and Robotron 64 for twin-stick blasting. There are fighting game cheats for Ready 2 Rumble Boxing, Round 2 and Rakuga Kids, while sports fans get NFL Blitz 2001 secrets. Puzzle League and Puyo Puyo Sun 64 provide brain-teasing unlocks, and you can find passwords for Quake and Quake 2. Nuclear Strike and Off-Road Challenge offer vehicle-based chows, and Resident Evil 2 brings survival horror cheats. Pokémon Stadium 2 features trainers and rare Pokémon info, Revolt provides racing track unlocks, and Ogre Battle 64 has music test codes. The page is dotted with screenshots showing Perfect Dark, Pokémon Stadium 2, Rampage 2, and Ready 2 Rumble action. The next page continues the Cheat Central section, packing in more secrets for a cracking lineup of N64 games. Right at the top you've got passwords that look like they're for Diddy Kong Racing, alongside cheats for Road Rash 64. Then there's a big section for South Park, with codes for all the main characters like Chef, Cartman and Mr. Mackey, complete with a couple of screenshots showing the game in action. The Star Wars universe is well represented with cheats for Star Soldier, Episode 1, Racer, and Rogue Squadron. You can also find unlocks for Supercross 2000, Superman, the Rush Racing games, Rush 2 and San Francisco Rush 2049, and Rugrats Treasure Hunt, which has a nice screenshot of the gang. Other titles covered include Scars, Shadowgate 64, Shadows of the Empire, the snowboarding games 1080 and Snowboard Kids, Space Station Silicon Valley, Spider-Man with another screenshot, Super Mario 64 Secrets, Tarzan, Super Smash Bros., and the Tetris games. It's a proper treasure trove of cheats, for a wide variety of classics. This page provides cheat codes for several N64 games. For The World Is Not Enough, there are codes for multiplayer modes and character skins. Vigilante 8 offers passwords for Cars, Infinite Ammo, and a Stickman mode. Zelda, Majora's Mask cheats fix signs and offer tips, with a screenshot included. Finally, Turok games get unlimited ammo and character mode cheats. The page also features a Beat the Competition section, a contest with prizes like a PlayStation 2, DVDs, electronics, and other items. Players can enter by calling specific numbers. There's also a Guess Who competition. Lastly, a thank you note acknowledges a cheat submission for Indiana Jones. This page is primarily an advert section featuring special offers. It highlights various Nintendo 64 strategy guides and books for games, including Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, listed as Zelda 64, Lylat Wars, Turok 2, and GoldenEye. A large graphic featuring Donkey Kong in a costume is prominent. There are also several adverts for phone services and games for other platforms. This page is the start of the Nindex, the magazine's massive guide covering every single N64 game they've ever reviewed. It's set up like a comprehensive reference, letting you see all the key details for each game in one place. You've got the game name, who made it, how many can play, and which peripherals it uses, all laid out for easy comparison. There's also a section breaking down the different genres covered in the index. On the right is the Our Top 10, showcasing the absolute best N64 games at the time. You've got shots from Conker's Bad Fur Day, showing off its sharp visuals, and Paper Mario, with its distinctive 2D character style in a 3D world. There's the intense action of Perfect Dark and Banjo-Tooie's colorful platforming world. They also feature Tom and Jerry in their N64 outing, the strategy of StarCraft 64, the intense shooter Sin and Punishment, the absolute classic GoldenEye, and both The Legend of Zelda. Majora's Mask, referred to as Zelda 2 here, which is odd but understandable given the Majora's Mask is the second Zelda on N64, and the original Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. It's a fantastic lineup of games, highlighting the console's diverse library. This page continues the Nindex, sorting through the vast N64 library by genre. On the left you've got the shoot-'em-ups and fighting games sections, complete with their respective 64 top lists featuring games like Perfect Dark and GoldenEye for the shooters, and Tom and Jerry and WWF No Mercy leading the fighting pack, all with screenshots showing them off. The right side covers the adventure, platform, and 4-player games, presenting their top lists too. Conker's Bad Fur Day and the Banjo games head up the platform list. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask are at the top of adventure, and the 4-player list is topped by Perfect Dark and GoldenEye again. The main bulk of the page details loads of games from these genres, providing a quick overview, and the magazine's score for each one. This page continues the Nindex, showcasing the scores and summaries for even more games across various genres. On the left you'll find the racing and sports games, with the 64 top lists highlighting gems like Formula 1 World Grand Prix and Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboarder getting cracking scores. Over on the right we move into party and puzzle games, strategy and simulation titles led by the mighty StarCraft 64, and even a section dedicated to the 64 top bad games, featuring some truly dreadful efforts like Carmageddon and Superman. The main listings provide a quick look at loads of titles, showing the review score, and a brief comment on each game. This page continues the Nindex list, focusing on Game Boy Color games this time. Looking back, the big feature here is the back issues section, prominently featuring Joanna Dark from Perfect Dark. It highlights issue 53, covering Pokémon Stadium 2 and Banjo-Tooie. This page previews the next issue, highlighting the big feature which is the review of Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, promising the only review you'll need. It also mentions coverage of Game Boy and GameCube. The rest of the page is dedicated to magazine subscriptions and mobile phone ringtones.